Did I hit play? Oh, there's play. Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of Dylan Knows Lists. This is the greatest video show of all time, and I will stand by that until the day I die. So take that, Kamikaze Hangout. Ha! For those who watched last week, you know, Allison Berry, who was on the Kamikaze Hangout, she was on the show. We had a little bit of a
rivalry.
Not a bitching match, but an outdoing match of each other. It was a lot of fun, though. However, this is something completely different. This is my list show where me and my lovely co-host Jerry, we pick a topic, and it's our top 10. So this week's topic is going to be the top 10 best moms in pop culture. And I'm going to send this out to one of the top 10 best moms of all time, Jerry Fletcher.
Hello. How is everybody doing? Happy Mother's Day to all the mommies out there.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're doing okay. I think I'm finally kicking the cold that's been kicking my butt for the last 2 weeks. Still got little coughs here, so if I go in and out, pause out for a second, it's just to clear my throat. Actually, it's just like that. You know. I didn't have time.
Thank you for the
example. Now, before we get to our list, Jerry, I had a quick question I wanted to ask you. And you know, it's along the lines of our topic, and I'm going to preface it by saying I'm going to buy my wife presents for Mother's Day, but I want to ask you: do you think it's weird to have your husband buy you Mother's Day gifts because you're not his mother, you're his wife? I know you're the mother of his children, but you know, when the kids are younger, obviously he's going to buy presents and say they're from the kids. But when you get older, what's your take on that?
No, I don't think it's weird. And granted, my kids are younger right now, 10, 8, and 5, and he still signs the card, and he goes out with them, sort of this group effort to get whatever it is they get me. But no, I don't think it's weird because I guess from a man standpoint, I mean, you guys came together, and that's how you became a mother to start with, right? So I mean, the husband's responsible for making the wife become a mother, so I think it's kind of nice. It's part of that bond.
Okay, I've always gotten on something, and I just want to know because I know there have been some people who say, well, my wife's not my mother. Why am I buying her Mother's Day presents? Well, you know, you actually hit it right on the head. I think that's a really good way to look at it. So I just wanted to just get your take on that.
Yeah.
I'm actually proud of myself. I actually, after we do the show today, I got to go out and get the stuff for her. I mean, I knew what I was going to get for her, but you know, I found it last weekend, but at the time she was with me.
Yeah.
I didn't want to buy it and say, oh, well, you can't see this, you know, because actually it's pretty big stuff. It's pretty big stuff. So, and I couldn't go during the week because the week is really busy. So when she gets back and my daughter's having a play date with one of her friends, I'm going to go out and I'm going to buy it. It's something that I've never gotten for her before, so I'm actually very proud of myself.
Oh, I can't wait to find out what it was.
I hope it works out. So, but we wasted 5 minutes. But no, we didn't really waste it. We stuck to the topic.
That was an important question.
Exactly, it was. But I know everybody out there, the 0 viewers who are watching, are excited to find out. I always make fun of that. It's not a big deal.
I know.
We do this because it's fun to do. I love doing this. So, I mean, if I didn't, I wouldn't have done my 84th episode. So, you know.
Exactly.
Anyway, let's get to the meat of the order. Well, not the meat of the order. It's the beginning of the order, we should say. So the top 10 pop culture moms. And Jerry, what's your number 10?
Okay, my number 10 is from a book, and the author is Beverly Cleary. And it is Ramona and Beezus' mom, Dorothy Quimby. I don't know if you're familiar with the Ramona books. That's what I was referring to earlier with, I don't know if Noelle's into them yet. But Dorothy is strong and loving. You know, she's the type of mom that she allows her daughters to make mistakes, but then learn the lesson that you get out of making your mistake. So she allows them that independence, but she's extremely caring. And the book that stands out most for me is called Ramona and Her Mother. And it was this really sweet book. You know, Ramona is looking forward to kind of spending this day with her mom. And, just mom things get in the way. Her sister needs things and this happens and that happens. And Ramona gets really angry. So toward the end of the book, she wants to run away. So what does her mother do? She's like, okay, let's get your suitcase, and starts to help her pack. And then she hands her suitcase, and Ramona, like in her mind, she's more and more shocked because she's like, oh my gosh, she's, letting me go. And then her mother's like, you can run away, but I just want to let you know I'll be really sad because I'll be missing my littlest daughter. And just the way that she approaches it, because then of course Ramona changes her mind. And sorry for the spoiler for anyone who hasn't read it.
It's a kid's story. It's a kid's story. Yeah, it's going to happen.
The sweet bond that they have, and the fact that she can sort of turn the situation around that way and sort of make Ramona think that she's in the lead, just shows what kind of a really sweet, nice, caring mom she is. And so she is my number 10, Dorothy Quimby.
That is awesome. Yeah. We got, let's see, Noelle's a voracious reader. She gets that from her mother, Dawn. It's so funny. She's like a little Dawn. I mean, recently we've been allowing her bedtime roughly. We get them ready around 8 o'clock for Bass, and then we read them stories, or in Noelle's case, she reads and we just hang out with her till about 9 o'clock-ish for Noelle. Noah is about 8:45. We get him down quicker. But, what we've been doing recently is like, okay, you can stay up till 9:30 and read if you want to, but once 9:30 hits, you got to turn the light off and go to bed. So we've been upping that a little bit.
Yeah.
So this past Christmas, we knew she was a big reader, and we wanted to get more chapter books because that's what she's been exploring more now. She's been getting more. She's in 2nd grade, so she's getting more into the chapter books now. So Dawn got her a bunch of the Ramona books, and then told various family, hey, I'm getting these. If you want to help get a complete set, these are the ones we need. And we actually have a complete set of the Ramona books. However, she hasn't read them yet. So, but they're there. Yeah. Because right now she's in this phase right now where she's loving this fairy series, the Rainbow Fairy series. And it's a very interesting series. I mean, the books are very thin. They're about 60 pages long. They are chapter books, and we get them from the library. We get like 13, 15, and she literally reads all of them in 1 week.
That's
and so we're going back to the library the next week because, you don't have to return books for 3 weeks.
Right.
We're returning them every week because she needs more books to read.
That's great. Yeah, I'm familiar with that series. I volunteer at a school library every week, and I shelve books, and those books are always getting put back on the shelf. So the girls are definitely taking them out all the time.
Oh yeah, it's a fun. I read one entirely while during her or after bath time, before bedtime phase when she was reading. I read one also. So yeah, they're easy to read, they're easy to follow, they have good lessons and stuff like that.
Great.
And yeah, that's great. But one of the other things also is that while she's doing her reading, sometimes I either sleep or I just lay there and just look around, or sometimes I grab some of her other books. I've actually looked through some of the Ramona books, and I've read a couple of them, and they're good. And I kind of remember some of them from when I was younger, but I don't, and I do, Right. But Beverly Cleary is definitely a great, and that's a great mom right there. We go from a great mom to a not so great mom, if you look at it in perspective. My number 10 is probably one you might not have ever heard of, Jerry. I could be wrong, I don't know, but it has a special place in my heart because the movie was filmed in my area. It's Beverly Sutphin, also known as Serial Mom.
Yeah, the cheerleader.
No.
Oh, no. Not the one where she gets her daughter to. Oh, it's Kathleen Turner, right?
Yes, it's Kathleen Turner.
I've seen it. I'm mixing it up with a different movie. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, it came out almost 20 years ago.
Right.
So it's been out there for a while, but it's by John Waters, who is a local, a Maryland local, and he's one of the craziest, most bizarre filmmakers you've ever seen. But he's actually one of the coolest guys you've ever met, also, and he's very down to earth. I've met him a couple times. I've even talked to him. He's talked to me. It was kind of cute. But Serial Mom is great because Kathleen Turner's Beverly Sutphin is, on the surface, your typical 1950s style mom. She makes the dinner. Her husband's a lawyer, not a lawyer, doctor, something like that. He's not a lawyer because that comes into play a little later. But I think he's a doctor. And so, he's the man of the house, and he's got 2 kids, played by Ricky Lake and Matthew Lillard. And, they're teenagers, so they're going through their teenage phases right now. But what we don't realize is that she's psychotic. And especially when it comes to her family. If anyone messes with her family, she will kill them. Literally. Not figuratively, literally kill them. And do it with a big grin on her face. But at the same time, she also causes all kinds of other issues. She pretends to be an obscene phone caller to get on the nerves of her neighbor who said something mean about her house or her family or whatever. So she pretends to be this obscene phone caller thing. And whenever people figure out that it's her and they try to blame her, her exterior being this great, cheerful mom makes the cops go, I think they're wrong. But eventually but she's psychotic, but she's also very devious because she knows that if there's an eyewitness to one of her crimes, she will hunt them down and she will take care of them also. And so and eventually something happens where she gets busted and she goes through a whole court case and she gets rid of her lawyer who's been assigned to her and she defends herself and she actually gets herself off, which is so funny. It's just really funny, but it's a you can't take it seriously. Well, yeah. It's a fun film. But the main reason why she's on my list of the top 10 moms is because you say stuff like you would die for your kids. Which is true. I mean, if you're in the middle, if you're being held up or if there's a fire and you made it out, but your kids didn't, you're going to run back in there and get your kids out of there. You don't care. You don't know, to hell with the circumstances. You got to get your kids out of there and make sure they survive. That's true. But you're not really going to kill for your kids because that's illegal. But when you're psychotic like Beverly is, it doesn't matter. But so I put her in there just because she has that, typical 1950s style perfect mother where she, cleans the house and makes the food and takes care of the kids and treats them very well, treats her husband, as he's supposed to, get him drinks and massage his feet and do all this stuff. But at the same time, she's got this devious, evil side that actually in the end, her husband finds out about it and actually scares him to death, but he still stays with her because he loves her. And it's a very funny movie. It's not a realistic movie, but it's very funny. And another reason why I like is they filmed at my high school. They filmed in the neighborhood around my elementary school because John Waters usually films movies in Baltimore City itself. Mm-hmm. But this film was a story about the suburban life. So he filmed it in the Baltimore County suburbs, which is where I grew up. So that's always kind of cool. So I recommend checking it. If you want to just watch, if you just want to sit back and just watch something totally mindless, totally just absolutely off the wall, insane, but a lot of fun, go get Serial Mom. It was like 94, 93 it came out. So I highly recommend that. So that's my number 10.
Interesting start to your list there.
Oh, just wait till my number 9.
Well, my number 9 is probably as different as possible to your number 10. Mine is from another book, Little Women. And it is Margaret March, which she was known as Marmee because the oldest daughter was also Margaret Meg. Just a progressive, 19th century mommy. Her husband was fighting in the Civil War. They had little money, but she did everything she could do. She worked hard. She did charity work, everything for the war and for her daughters. She wanted them to grow up. But what was cool about her, so you got your typical loving, understanding, still made time for her kids. But she wanted her daughters to have an education. And she also told them it wasn't important to marry rich. You marry the person that you fall in love with, which, like I said, that was very progressive for the time. Back then there were a lot of different expectations put on women, and she just didn't fall into that, that mold, so to speak. So she's my number 9.
That's a great number 9. And I was looking through I had my list pretty much set last night, but I wanted to do one last go over it. Mm-hmm. And I was looking to see what other people were saying. She pops up a bunch of times also. And I almost put her on there because she is an absolute fantastic mom. And you don't have to be a female to enjoy Little Women. It is a classical piece of literature. It is a classic. It is literally a classic. It is one of the best books out there. There have been a ton of movies made about it. And you also have to consider this too. Her husband's off war. She basically was a single mom raising 4 girls in the midst of this war-torn era, while at the same time dealing with all the other issues that came with that time period also. And it was really cool is that back in the 1980s, when I had HBO, when my folks had HBO, I should say, I didn't have it because I was a kid, but I was able to watch it. HBO used to have a great morning shows for kids. Cartoons, and what they did is they made cartoons out of classic literature. They made a awesome. I got to find this on DVD. I have them all on. I have them on audio, on videotape. I need to find a DVD version of his Adventures of Tom Sawyer, which is a fantastic.
My kids would like that.
It's a 65 episode cartoon that basically follows the major beats of the book, but at the same time, there's not a lot in the book. If you've read it, you know there's only specific storylines, and they hit all those storylines in the cartoon. But you gotta pull it out a little bit, and and that's good because then you get to take a deeper look at some of the other characters. You get a better look at Huck Finn. You get a better look at Tom's sister, because a lot of people didn't know he had a sister and a brother. Right. He did. He has both. He had a sister and a brother. So, they get a look at them, and you get a little bit of different take on some other things. And then they did a great series about Babar, which is a great one. And then they did a fantastic Little Women cartoon. It was fantastic. It was done the same style. And once again, hitting the major beats of the story, but at the same time, expanding it a little bit so that they can fill that 65 episode thing. And it was that one, unfortunately, I didn't really tape though, but I watched it because the art is, it's very anime-esque, but not like the outrageous anime, just more like the more like Hayao Miyazaki realistic looking animation with the gorgeous painted backgrounds and the realistic looking. And it was a great series. They had a great vote. And then of course, bringing back 1994 again, I think it was 94. They did the Little Women movie with Susan Sarandon as Margaret Fantastic, Winona Ryder, and I think Kirsten Dunst was in that as well. Yes, that was a great version. Yeah, they did a really good job with that. I really like that. So that's another really good one. My list sounds horrible next to yours. But my number 9. My number 9 again is I'm sticking with John Waters again because I love John Waters, and he's done. Well, these are actually really the only 2 great moms that he's ever done. Serial Mom. This one is Edna Turnblad from Hairspray. Now I'm talking once again the 19s. No, it wasn't 94. It was probably the 1988 version, not the John Travolta version where he played Edna Turnblad the musical. I'm talking about the film that started the Hairspray craze in 1988, which had Divine, who was John Waters' best friend, who was also a transvestite cross-dresser, who dresses a woman and a man. And he played a woman in pretty much all of the films he did with John Waters. And he was starting to get to that age where he was getting kind of tired of playing women again. So John said, hey, you know what I'll do? I'll make you 2 roles in Hairspray. So you can be your male part and be a completely different character. And he played the racist TV TV owner, the owner of the TV station, who didn't want any black people dancing on his dance show. And then he played the Heart of Gold, Edna Turnblad. And the reason why I put her on my list, and once again, this is not the John Travolta one, this is the Divine one, is because we know when you see her, you know it's Divine. You know it's a guy dressed as a woman, but her character is so well written and so well rounded that you don't care. Right. And she starts off as this, she's overweight, lounging around the house, but doing her thing, ironing and making dinner and taking care of her family. Tracy Turnblad, she only has 1 daughter, which is Tracy. Her husband runs the joke store, which is they live on above the joke store. And they're not rich, they're not poor, they're sort of in the middle there. And gradually when Tracy gets into becoming a hugely popular dancer on the after-school dance shows, Edna becomes basically her agent. And it is hilarious to see her, trying to do things like that. And then at the same time, Tracy's learning the lesson about, racism is horrible. She's not racist. She never was racist because she was raised that way by her folks. The folks might have a little bit of racism in them because you just happen to, but they did not want to show it to them, and they never really brought it out. So in my assumption, I don't think they were ever racist, and they might have said, everybody's the same. So Tracy discovered that, why can't the black kids dance with us?
Right.
This is 1960s Baltimore, so you're going to have your segregation. And so Edna becomes a segregation, not segregation. She's not a segregationist. She's pro opening up so that blacks and whites can all live together in peaceful harmony. And she's able to convince Edna to change maybe her mindset. She might not have really cared about it, but it was a major thing for Tracy. It was a belief that she believed in, that blacks and whites should be together. And she's able to convince Edna that it's a good thing to fight for this. So her and her father, Edna and Tracy's father, they both sign up to try to help stop segregations and help get everybody together. And it is it's fantastic. It's great to see Divine playing, you're used to seeing Divine playing these off the wall, sick, disgusting characters in John Waters' previous films. Yeah. And Hairspray was the first film that Waters did that was more, I wouldn't say family friendly, but that's kind of what it is. It was more family friendly, but there's still, you still get a little bit of John Waters asides to it, but it's more subtle. It's not in your face as the Pink Flamingos and Polyester were, but this was that first one. So it actually makes a good statement about diversification and how racism is bad and how segregation is bad. And it was just great to see Divine playing this great mother character who you can see kind of the change where she sort of lay about in the house, not really concerned about anything. And then when Tracy starts saying, we got to do this, it makes her get up and say, we got to help and we got to do it. And one of the funniest things is when Edna and I can't think of Tracy's dad's name, but he was played by Jerry Stiller, who was on Seinfeld, and also is Ben Stiller's dad. They help kidnap the governor to help end segregation. It is one of the funniest things. And then there's just such a great scene where Jerry Stiller's character is going after Sonny Bono's racist bad guy character, also with itching powder. It is hilarious, but it's a great movie. And Edna is a great mom. And when you believe in what your kids and you take up their cause, that's a sign of a good parenting as well, because it's important to their kids, so you may as well make it important to yourself. And that's what Edna Turnblad did. That's
awesome. I love that one. Yeah, and that is important to sort of find your cause, even if you're finding it through your children, because then, it makes your kids look at you like, wow, look, mom or dad care about this issue. And it sort of brings that aspect out in them too, Oh yeah. So yeah.
And I highly recommend see the musical On Stage.
I have seen it. Yeah. I saw it on Broadway. Yeah.
But watch the original film in 1988. It is fantastic because it's really it's not a musical, but it's got great 1960s music that you might not have ever heard before.
Right.
And you've also got, some great, just some great cameo roles, just great characters in it, and it is funny. It is really, really funny. And as I said, it's probably good enough for kids, but there's one or two little jokes that you might be like,
explain that. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah,
I've seen other things where the kids are like, why are people treating certain people that way? And we've sort of had to sit down and say, well, there was a time when people did treat people differently, and it's very interesting how this generation of kids, as children, they don't see a difference in anybody or anything, and I love that about them, and hopefully it stays that way. We'll see what their generation brings. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. All right, so my number 8, we're getting a little bit more sad, a little more serious. It's from a movie, one of my favorite movies ever, and it's from Terms of Endearment. And the character is Aurora Greenway, played by the great Shirley MacLaine. The story follows Aurora and her daughter, Emma. Aurora is from Houston. She's very feisty. Emma is like the sort of free-spirited, child of the, I guess, the 60s, 70s. I'm not quite sure what decade the movie's from, or where the stories will take place. They have this tight bond, but they fight all the time. They just bicker and fight. And they're sort of going through life and trying to find the men and love and this and that. And, it just she's always protective of Emma, no matter what. And then, Emma gets a cancer diagnosis, and like right up to the end, she's just always there for Emma. And that's just the gist of it, just the bond that these two have. And the movie's great because it's funny, it's sad, it's serious, it's silly, it's everything all wrapped up into one, just like life.
And it's realistic also because I know you. Well, I don't know about you personally. I don't know if you have brothers. Do you have a brother or sister? You have a brother,
I have
right?
2 brothers.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you probably know, and I don't know actually how it is with you, but you have 3 boys, so you've got your own set of problems right now. But when I grew up, I had a sister. I have an older sister, and her and my mom went at it with each other when they were when my sister was in high school, and it's sort of similar in terms of endearment. It shows that yes, we have this bond, we love each other very much, but there's also going to be some friction. It's just the way it works out. It's the way, and I'm just anticipating, hoping it's not as bad as when my sister and my mom went at it, but anticipating Noelle and Dawn maybe going at it down the line. I hope not, because Dawn always says she never really got into any issues with her mom, but her other sisters did. But that's a different story for a different time. Yeah. But it's a great film. I'm trying to remember. I know she was nominated for Best Actress. I don't know if she won it. I know Nicholson won for the Best Supporting Actor role. I believe it was Supporting Actor. I don't think it was regular actor. Yeah. But I don't think. I don't know if she won or not, but she was nominated though because James L. Brooks is a great director, and he's able to bring out those feelings and those emotions and bring it into a realistic light. Yes, you're going to have the good times and you're going to have the bad times. Yeah. But when things get really, really bad with the cancer diagnosis, you can see then that all the bad stuff that you two went through together, the arguments, the fighting, whatever, that goes out the window, and it's all about trying to get better. So yeah, it's one of the absolute best looks at a relationship. Yes. Is someone calling?
Sorry, no, they're doing whatever. I'm not even going to open the door. They'll stop.
My number 8 is from a TV show directed by John Waters. No, I'm just kidding. he never directed any TV. No, this is and I like this show for a bunch of reasons. And one day I will go into my.
Lucas, you have to go in the other room. Okay, later. Thanks. Close the door. Sorry, go ahead.
No, it's fine. This is perfect because you're being a mom. Yes. And this is a Mother's Day show, so that's really perfect. There you go. One day I'll get into my obsession with Sarah Michelle Gellar, but
you have. Yes,
I have.
Yes, I've heard.
But I decided to go a different way, and I went with her mom from Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Joyce Summers, played by Christine Sutherland. Now, Joyce Summers is one of those moms who, when the show starts, she's a single mom, basically. Buffy's parents are divorced, and the mom got the custody and is the one who's with Buffy. And her and Buffy had that little tension because she's in high school, and you're going to have that. Plus, they had to move because she got kicked out of the last high school she was in because she killed all the vampires. But she can't tell her mom that she burned down her school because there were vampires in it, because her mom wouldn't believe her for a second. And so that was kind of it was, once again, it was what you said. They have a wonderful mother-daughter relationship, but at the same time, there's that aspect where Buffy's mom still feels angry towards Buffy that they had to leave their comfortable existence because she lost control of herself, not knowing that she was doing it to protect humanity. She just thought it was a rebellious teenage act. I'm going to burn the school down because my boyfriend broke up with me or something like that.
Right. And she resents it. Yeah.
But she still, but Joyce still tries to, connect with her daughter. And when Buffy gets back into vampire slaying, it causes kind of a wedge between them. And eventually it leads to the end of season 2, where Buffy has just killed Angel, her love of her life, and has decided that she's going to leave town because she can't look at anything anymore. And also that episode, she revealed her vampire slayerness to her mom, and her mom freaked out, which is, if your daughter comes and says, yeah, I kill vampires, you're going to freak out also, because A, vampires,
yeah, what do you mean vampires?
And B, my daughter is killing these creatures. She's not just hurting them, she's literally killing them and destroying them. So she freaks out a little bit. And so Buffy runs away at the end of season 2 and ends up living in San Francisco for a couple weeks or whatever, and eventually makes her way back. And the episode when she gets back is one of the most taught mother-daughter episodes, as they confront their situation, and eventually they come to a conclusion and understanding, and things work out in the end eventually. But now Joyce has another set of problems. Now she knows her daughter is going out there against these horrible creatures and could die at any moment, and so her stress level is now amped up, and she's starts to try to become a little overprotective of Buffy, and that sort of rubs him the wrong way. That's why, one of these shows we're going to do top 10 TV seasons of all time. I've been talking about it for a while.
Oh, yeah.
Buffy season 3 is one of the absolute best seasons of Buffy, and it's part of it is due to this new mother-daughter relationship. Now that Buffy has her secret's been revealed to her mom, and now her mom is starting to become overprotective about it. So. And then it gets even more amped up and it's a spoiler warning, so those who haven't seen Buffy or watched the show, I'm about ready to drop a big spoiler on you on about around season 6-ish, I guess. Buffy's mom has a brain tumor and she dies in her sleep, and it is one of the roughest episodes of Buffy you'll ever see. Joss Whedon wrote the hell out of that episode, and he directed the hell out of it. And it's one of those episodes where Buffy's been taking on these undead, the vampires, the impossible. She's been meeting her impossible odds, and she's been beating them. But then she can't protect her mom from something as simple as a brain tumor, and the brain tumor takes her life in the end. And now Buffy is stuck in that what am I going to do now phase. And at that time, they had introduced a little sister to Buffy, which is all convoluted about how that came about. I'm not even going to get into that. But so now Buffy has been amped up to be the mom now to her little sister, who's now entering her teenage years. So that's where Joyce Summers is on my list because, she starts off as that, regular mom who loves her daughter and tries to connect, but is still kind of angry at her and maybe basically might be blaming her for the divorce she had with her husband because of the situation at her previous school. And at that time, they don't really go into it that much, but you pretty much, Joss makes little hints here and there that the movie version with Christy Swanson is basically a prequel to the TV series, even though it's done with all completely different actors, because she burns the school down at the end. Well, she doesn't burn it down. Actually, she just kills the vampires. But they had to figure out a way to get her to Sunnydale. So they said that she ended up burning the place down. But basically, he doesn't come out and say it, but the original movie is basically a prequel to that. So in that movie, Buffy's mom is a self-obsessed, rich mom. Her and her husband are these big partiers who go out and they go to parties and they go drinking with friends, and they have a comfortable lifestyle and leave Buffy alone because she's old enough, and they just go off and they do the party thing. And that, if you remember that leading into the TV series, you get that feeling of why she might be slightly angry with Buffy, and because she's lost that lifestyle that she was so accustomed to, and now she's got to come up with, surviving, stuff like that. So my number 8 is Joyce Summers.
Wow, that's a good one. Let's see, number 7. I don't know if you know this one. The mommy's name is J.C. Wyatt. Ring a bell?
Yes, I do.
Played by the great Diane Keaton.
Well,
And
I was actually, it was funny. I was thinking about this movie the other day, but I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, that's okay. And the movie is called Baby Boom. And it was this great movie done in the 80s. And so basically, she is this workaholic, like exact in the city and has her lifestyle. I'm never going to get married or have kids or this, that. She's yuppie and does her thing. And then one day, her cousin dies. And in the will, she finds out that she is inherited or is going to be then responsible for taking care of the cousin's baby. So she gets the baby and she realizes, wow, I can't be a mom to this baby and still live this, crazy high-end lifestyle in the city. So she ends up moving to Vermont and she buys this farmhouse, this old farmhouse. She buys it, right? It wasn't the cousin's house.
No, she bought it because she wanted to get out of the city. Yeah.
Right. So she's in Vermont. She's in this farmhouse, and she sort of has to start over again because she's overwhelmed. She has never done this mom thing again, so she's totally clueless. But you know what? She learns. She gets through. She then discovers that my farm here is plentiful. I've got all these crops and these trees that grow all sorts of things. So she merges the two, her new world and her old world, and creates jarred baby food from all the fruits and veggies and whatnot that are produced on her farm. So, it's this woman, she's supposed to symbolize this woman who can have it all. There was this whole ideology in the 80s where I guess things started to cross over and more moms started to go to work. It wasn't, Susie Homemaker anymore. And it's well, can you really do that? Can you have both, the best of both worlds? So, of course, in the movie, it works out for her. She can. So she's got the baby. She's got this great career. And, of course, she falls in love with the local vet. So she's it's win-win-win straight across the board. But I just love that movie, and I love her character, and I love the transformation. So I wanted to put her on this list.
I'm glad you did. I didn't put it on my list, but it is. I literally was just thinking about this movie the other day, and I don't know what set it off. I just started thinking about it. And I haven't seen it in a while, but I absolutely love it. It's basically she's overwhelmed by being this mom, so she ends up, she's she lives in a giant apartment, in one of those giant skyscraper apartment type things. She's dating Egon Spengler. Harold Ramis from Ghostbusters, and they have this, and then she then decides, I can't be a mom, so I'm gonna, give her up for adoption. And then what she's done is, though, right before she's getting ready to go to adoption, the baby gets a cold. So then she has to be a mom, so she has to stay up all night with her and take care of the baby and make sure she's okay. But she still wants to take her to the adoption agency, and she goes there, and the people that are going to adopt her are these two redneck farmer types who wanted a boy and said this will do, and she's going to be mowing crops and pushing the lawnmower and just doing a lot of work. And she's like, hell no. So she takes the baby away, and Harold Ramis was suggesting to her that she give it up. And when she appears with the baby, it's okay, our relationship's over. And because she went through this phase where she got into her momness with taking care of the baby, she said, you know what? Her job is on the line because of this baby. And her relationship is gone and done with because of the baby. But you know what? She doesn't care anymore. She just cares about the baby. So she's starting to slowly become the mom. And then she does move to Vermont. And it's gorgeous. It's gorgeous. Yeah. And the house she finds, she buys it because she was a very well-off woman.
Yeah.
And the house is a money pit. It's a disaster. That's one of the funny parts is that then it becomes a fish out of water film. Because now she's living in Vermont. She doesn't know how to take care of, she has well water now. And she's used to having pipes and stuff like that. So when her well dries up, she's like, oh, you can just fill it up with water. No, it doesn't work that way. So you're going to have to tap into the main line. And that's going to cost a fortune. And then her roof collapses. And it's snowing in her house. And she's got to pay for that too. And it's just great. And then she meets my Uncle Sam Shepard. He's married to Jessica Lange, who's my aunt.
Well, not really married anymore.
Yeah, they're not married anymore, but they were at the time. Yeah, my ex-uncle and my not real aunt, but we share the same last name, which is one of my jokes I do all the time. And he is able to bring her out of her shell a little bit more. And then she does the gourmet baby food, which is absolutely brilliant. Before all this, because now it's everywhere. Yeah, now at that time it was wow, that's a really good idea, and she starts her own company again, and she builds it up. And then and this is what I love, her old company comes calling and says, hey, you know what? We've just noticed you've been making a lot of money. And we want to take it over and give you even more money, but we want to run it our way. So they call her in for a meeting, and they're expecting her to pretty much roll over because, they know her from when she loved money and loved being on her own, but they didn't think about what she's been through the past year with, getting the business up and running and being with her kid and being a mom and being in the country. And she turns the tables on them in a fantastic episode, a final scene. And it is a great movie. Charles Shire, Nancy Myers, who did the Father of the Bride movies as well. And Nancy Myers has gone on to do a bunch of other really good strong female-centric character movies as well. It's a great film, and I'm so glad you brought it up there because it's as I said, I literally was thinking about that movie the other day. I don't know why. I was thinking about the last scene where they're offering her all this money and all this stuff, and she has this tick where she is tapping her leg against the table, it's going tap 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 tap.
What's funny is in I think it was 10th grade, my social studies teacher had us watch it in class and then write a paper about the comparisons and the beginning of this movement in terms of women and all. So that was cool too.
Wow, that is really cool.
Yeah, she incorporated the movie into whatever the study was that week. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I wish I had teachers like that.
just that one.
I'll have to admit, though, in college, I took a course called Arthurian Literature, and the last thing we did was watch Monty Python and the Holy Grail. So
awesome. That's cooler. Yeah.
My number 7 is a character who's been in TV shows, has been in movies, but started out in one of my favorite genres of all time, comic books. We're looking at Martha Kent, who is Clark Kent, also known as Superman's surrogate mom. Now, here's the interesting thing about Martha Kent, okay? Because of the way the comic industry is, there's been 4 or 5 different incarnations of Martha Kent. And I'm gonna grab a hold of the one that I grew up with, which was around 1986 is when I started reading Superman. At that point, before then, I was just a straight up Marvel guy, Spider-Man, Avengers, stuff like that. But in 1986, after DC had just done their Crisis, where they were going to clean up their universe and they were going to start over fresh with all their characters, and John Byrne, who was one of my favorite artists at the time, was going to be doing Superman. So I was like, you know what? I love John Byrne. I'm going to read Superman now. So I go in and I start reading his version of Superman. Now, in his version, both Clark's parents are still alive, or surrogate parents are still alive. Previous to that, his father was dead, and his mother wasn't really in the picture all that much, and then eventually she died. But then when John Byrne came in to basically reboot the Superman mythos, he said, you know what? This is what I want. This is how I want Superman. I want him to be more human than alien. And how do you do that? You have a more human influence on him. So he kept both of his parents alive. So you get the wise old Jonathan Kent, they're still farmers from Kansas. You get the wise old Jonathan Kent who gives them all these, words of advice and stuff like that. But then you have Martha, who is the one who is your basic mom. She's the one who takes care of him. It was John Byrne wrote it so that Martha could not have children. She had a internal issue, whatever, and can't have children. So when his spacecraft landed when he was a baby, they found it. Martha was able to convince Jonathan, we've got to take him in, not only because she wanted a child of her own, but because this is a little baby. It's a giant blizzard is coming, and her maternal instincts kicks in like that. It's like, I'm not going to leave a naked baby who may or may not be an alien out in this blizzard because it's going to die, and I will not have that on my conscience. So, and then it made it more obvious because this was one of those giant storms that will come in and cripple the city for months. And so, people who knew the Kents and knew that Martha wasn't pregnant, then all of a sudden, oh, wait, you have a baby?
Right.
The timing sort of works out so that, they're like, oh, okay, it happened,
She must have gotten pregnant.
She must have gotten pregnant in a storm, whatever, and then something happened, and whatever like that. So it worked itself out. And so Clark was surrounded by both of these loving surrogate parents who he basically only knew as his real parents because he was a baby. He didn't remember being from outer space. He just said, okay, these are my parents. And they taught him, the good old fashioned Midwestern values, and Martha at the same time, she's a tough old lady too. I mean, she knows, eventually when he becomes Superman, it gets even funny. It gets even better. She knows that he's eventually she knows he's Superman because they know he's an alien. They know she's actually the one who makes his first suit for him. It's actually funny, and still actually makes his suits for him because sometimes they get torn and stuff like that in battle. So she always repairs them and makes them for him. But she will protect him if necessary. Like there have been fights that he had when he was in Kansas and the bad guys were there, and Martha Kent, who was just, and Jonathan to that matter too, who are just straight up humans, they bring their shotguns out and they say, you're not going to mess with our child. And this is like a giant alien type of thing. They know they're probably going to die, but you know what? Their son is in danger, and we're going to do everything we can to stop that. And then eventually what happens then is they decide to kill off Jonathan, which is, I guess if you want to go in a different direction story-wise, and they did it in a very good way. I mean, he died of a heart attack. He was an older guy. It made sense. It wasn't just like a sudden, we're going to change the whole status quo. No, it was a progression. And so now she's the parent. Granted, now Clark's grown up in Superman, but he still comes back and wants advice and asks for advice and talks to him. So now Martha has to take both sides, and she does a bang-up job of it and helps him through these things. And also, she develops an affection for Lois, who eventually becomes, her daughter-in-law. And she's a typical Midwestern mom who wants to give you your best values and turned Superman into this incarnation of Superman, more human than alien. And unfortunately, when the New 52 came, which is when DC rebooted their system again, Martha's still around. But now Superman is more alien. Actually, no, I think she died. No, she did die too. He's more alien than human. And to tell you the truth, I don't like that.
Right.
And that's one of the reasons why I didn't like the movie Man of Steel either, is that I did not like Kevin Costner's portrayal of Jonathan Kent. Now, if Kevin Costner would have been a great Jonathan Kent, and if they would have maybe stuck with the version I was used to, I think he would have been the absolute perfect Jonathan Kent, because, Costner is this old, Field of Dreams type of thing. You kind of remember him from the Midwestern type of ideal, stuff like that. He but I think he would have been good if they would have stuck with that Jonathan Kent and the one that was in the movie. I still think he would have been a good one. So, but in the end, I'm gleaning on that Martha Kent. And I think in the Superman cartoon, that came out around that time also, they built her up as that way also. So my number 7 is Martha Kent.
I like that. And, she also took this extraordinary circumstance and tried to make it, like she tried to normalize it and make it as normal as possible, and give him, like you said, that Midwestern childhood, but at the same time knew there was much, much more to him and much, much more to come.
And also, she knew also that he had all these powers, that if he didn't have this grounding, he could become one of the absolute worst people in the world. No one can beat him. He could destroy cities, he can destroy countries, and no one can stop him. So, and that was what was great about them, was that they were able to ground him into believing that all life is precious, that the world is worth saving, despite all the stuff. And that's what actually their belief system also led him to want to become a reporter. And that also was great also, because then that gave him the opportunity to travel. Granted, he didn't need an airplane with that. He could just fly to China, or he could fly to Australia, or fly to Africa. But he would ensconce himself in that country, or whatever country he went to, and learn all about the suffering that was going on, and how to try to help without becoming an all ruler. I mean, granted, Superman could probably bring a giant iceberg into the desert and have it melt and create a lake, but he also knew that had circumstances that could destroy the ecosystem. So he had to, at the same time, yes, all life is precious, and he'll do his best that he can to help him, but he can't change specific things to fit that, because he knows that if he does this, something else is going to happen. And that's where, and he also knows that he can't come in and he can't fight a war for United States, because he doesn't want to take sides. He doesn't know the full story. Both sides might be right, you know, and he can't come in and make him look like that he's backing America, because then all of a sudden that turns him into, all right, he's America's secret weapon, you know, he's gonna mess with all America has to do is say, you know, Russia's being mean to us. Let's send Superman over there. He can destroy our countries, you know, and he didn't want that, and that was to do with both Martha and Jonathan. So
yeah, very, very great point. Yeah, and the funny thing, like he could have grown up, found out what happened to his world, and become extremely bitter. So yeah, not to keep harping on this, but yeah, really,
exactly. But yeah,
good. Yeah, it's great. All right, so my number 6 is from a TV show that right now, or as of late, has had a lot of controversy. So controversy aside, and just zeroing in on the mother of the show, I really like this character. It's from the 80s, and everybody grew up watching this show every week. I think it was on Thursday nights, and it was the Cosby Show. And Claire Huxtable was the mommy, Felicia Rashad. Like I said, controversy aside, I'm back to being, 10, 11, 12-year-old me watching the Cosby Show and really just loving it. She was a lawyer. She was sassy. She was hip. She was funny. She was strict. She had 5 kids. She had to keep them under her wing, and she had no problem doing that. She also had to sort of control her husband, who could be zany and wacky too sometimes. And she encompassed that working mom who could and did do it all, but with love and respect. And again, that same theme of allowing her kids to make the mistakes and learning from the mistakes, which I think is a very important thing to be able to do, to sort of let go of that control, even though they're going to get hurt, they're going to cry, they're going to this, they're going to that, but they've got to experience those things to grow up to become the grown-up that they're going to become, basically. So absolutely, Claire Huxtable had to be on my list.
Absolutely, yeah. She was a good pick also. And I'm going to just preface it by saying my list, and yours, you told me too, Jerry, we're trying to broaden our scope a little bit. So you're probably not going to hear the ones that you're expecting to, but Claire Huxtable is an absolute perfect example. And a good example of what you're saying, where they let the kids learn their own thing, is one of my favorite episodes was when Malcolm Jamal Warner's character, Theo, he's like wants to live on his own and all that stuff. So then what the family does is they turn their house into the real world.
Yeah, and I like that episode.
They give him, they say, okay, you have this job, you're going to make this much X amount of money. You got to find a place to live. You got to have food. You got to get clothes. And then the parents, they played each role, Bill Cosby played like the landlord, and I think he might have done a few other roles. Felicia Rashad was like the cook who, if he wanted something to eat, he would have to pay for it. Yeah, she couldn't just say, all right, here's your eggs, like she did as a mom.
Right.
As a mom, she said, yeah, absolutely, you can have whatever you want for free. What is mine is yours. But they were trying to teach him a lesson. It's like, no, you owe me $250. I'm sorry. I mean, and they were fair. I mean, they didn't jack up the price just to teach him a lesson. They said, no. If you go to any local deli or breakfast place, whatever, an egg and bacon platter is going to be about $250. So you owe me $250, And so it taught him how to control his money. And then you had his brothers and sisters come in and play different roles as well. So that is an absolute great. And she's the mother who had everything. She was a professional. She was a great mom. She was a great wife, showing affection to her husband and her kids and her family. And, at the same time, she might have issues with other people as well. Like I remember her and Eldon didn't really get along that well. So, yeah, until he actually grew up eventually. But at the beginning, he was just kind of
he was a mess.
A mess. And she sort of, I know you love my daughter and you're good for my daughter. My daughter loves you, but you know what? You've got an attitude adjustment, man. You need to change. You need to change up fast if you want to enter this family. And it's great, and it's great, and she was fantastic. And I love Felicia Rashad. And what's also great about the show was it was a great way to diversify.
Yes.
And yeah. And everyone's like, "Oh, it's not realistic. You're not going to find a black family that has a doctor for a dad and a lawyer for a wife. That's BS."
Of course you are. Yeah.
Yeah. There are.
There's plenty.
Exactly. All black people are not, poor or whatever. There's some black people who are richer than I am because they did what they learned. They went to school. They put in the hard work. They rose up the ranks as they're supposed to. And there's nothing to do with affirmative action. It's their own performance. What they did is they put in the work they needed to because they had a specific goal. I want to be a CEO of a company by the time I'm 30.
Yeah.
So how do you do that? You find a company, you get an introductory level, and you make your way up, learning along the way, and then eventually you can reach your goal. So there are
what you do. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So and to be honest, that's blatantly racist when people say that, and racism pisses me off, and I know it pisses you off also. But she's a great mom. That's another great mom. My number 6 is it's funny actually you use Claire Huxtable because she's one of the more familiar, popular moms that everybody knows. I'm about to give you one also. Marge Simpson. Now, I know she's a cartoon. I know she's not a real flesh and blood character, but she is a mom. And here's the thing, though. Her family's a mess. Okay? You got Homer, who is the biggest mess in the world. You've got Bart, who is, a rebel and doesn't care. You've got Lisa, who's a really, really smart, shy one, but she's a little bit too smart for her britches sometimes. And then you have Maggie, who doesn't speak, but she's a little Dickens, She gets into. But the thing is, and this is so great, and it the epitome of her being a mom is in an episode where there was an issue. There was an episode where Marge is a great mom. She's stay-at-home mom. She loves her kids, loves her family, keeps an immaculate house, has to deal with their different quirks, and she does it with humor and understanding, but can take control if she needs to. And there was an episode where Homer, trying to be a good guy, because Homer, he's kind of a whack job, but he still tries to do the right thing every once in a while. He saw that Marge was has been doing such a great job as a mom that she needs a break. And so he gets these free passes to like a spa day for both of them. And so, Homer being Homer, he does trying to be helpful. He puts his senile dad, grandpa, in charge of the kids. Now there's a bunch of other stuff that's happening in the episodes, but eventually it turns out that, because of Marge just taking a day off. Now, up to this point, everything's been perfect, but this day, when she is taking the day off to be at the spa, Bart gets lice. I think Lisa has to wear a burlap bag to school because her
didn't do laundry.
Didn't do laundry. And then when the school saw that, they brought him home to see what, to see. They couldn't contact their parents to pick him up. So the school came and they called Child Protective Services. And when they got there, there's senile grandpa in the corner, sort of talking to himself, blah, 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 blah. There's Maggie drinking water from the dog's water dish with like her name, like dog taped on the back of her or whatever. There's piles of newspapers in the kitchen because Lisa was doing a recycling drive. But when you don't know what's going on, you come in, you see all that, you're like, oh my God, this family's a mess. So what they do is they put the kids into protective custody and they end up going to Flanders, which is their neighbor's house, which is the Christian, happy-go-lucky, oakley-dokley type of family. And then Marge, who, as I said, has had control the whole time, was taking care of the kids, made sure everything was fine. She takes this one day off, and her kids have been taken from her. That is, in itself, shows how much of a great mom she is because of one day that she just happened to be out of it. Because she was getting relaxed, which mom.
It was a day for herself.
A day for herself. Her kids get taken away in childhood custody. So, what's even great is that then the kids learn how horrible life is with the Flanders, and that their life wasn't so bad with with Homer and Marge, and Homer and Marge are trying their best to get their kids back, and then at the end, the Flanders decide that they're going to baptize the kids. And that drives Homer absolutely insane. So he tries to stop them, and he does. He stops them from getting, baptized. But then Bart and Lisa embrace Homer. But Maggie, who's never felt, I guess, really too loved by Homer or like them, her life has been great with the Flanders because it's a baby. They've been paying attention to her. They've been and stuff like that. So she sees them in this, the golden light, and then sees Homer and Bart and Lisa as being devils, and they're like saying, come with us, come with us. So she starts heading over towards the Flanders, being that she wants to be with the Flanders. But then all of a sudden, something draws her attention. It's Marge's big bouffant blue hair.
Right.
And as soon as that happens, nothing else matters. She loves her mommy. She goes right to her mommy, and she becomes, her mom is her life. And that's just one episode that shows who Marge is as a mom. And in the end, when you're dealing with Homer and Bart and Lisa and Maggie and all the different characters, stuff like that, and she does it with such good will and good understanding and charm and funness, and always looks on the bright side of life, that's a good sign of a mom. And then you also show, some signs where, okay, things are breaking down on her, so she wants to go out and do some other things, and she does.
Yeah.
But, in the end, she ends up going back to being a mom because that's what she wants to do. So Marge Simpson is my number 6.
That's a great one. She's a great mom. And she makes it look easy, too.
It does. She really does.
That's the key. All right, so my number 5 is Mrs. Gump. Forrest's mommy, Sally Field. Sally Field's such a great actress. You could put her in a burlap bag and she could still do a great job. It doesn't matter. What can I say about Mrs. Gump? She gives birth to this child who has some special needs. He's got some issues, but his whole life, all she does is give him unconditional love and makes him believe that he can do absolutely anything that he sets his mind to, that he can, never to quit, to just go for it and get out there and no limitations, just do it. And because of that, he ended up living this really great life and experiencing all these good and bad experiences. Like I had said previously, you've got to let them go and experience some of the bad so that they can develop into the grown-up that they're going to be. And she is a just perfect example of that. She has no husband. I forget in the story if they say why he's gone.
Yeah, they didn't say. Basically, the only thing they said was young Forrest asked mom, actually when they're at the guidance counselor's office, and he's like, the slimy Southern guy's like, oh, is there a Mr. Gump? Because what he's thinking. Yeah. And she's like, nah, he's on vacation. And then later that night, young Forrest asked, Mom, what's vacation? And I think her answer was, vacation is where you go away and you never come back, or something like that.
Okay. So it doesn't matter, basically. Yeah.
I think we're supposed to infer that because Forrest is mentally challenged, that his dad couldn't handle that and left the family and dished the family, which is a bad dad.
Yes.
And, and that's the problem, and we can get into this next month, and we'll tell you about what we're going to do next month. But, there are more bad dads than good dads out in pop culture, and that kind of pisses me off a little bit. Yeah. But in this case, it makes sense. Because
of the time, if a child is born in 2015 with the same issues that Forrest Gump had, the dad isn't going to be so quick to run away. But back then, it was either the dad left or the kid got thrown into some special home with no chance of ever getting to do anything. But she ended up there. It's their home, but it's also like a hotel, motel-ish kind of thing, or bed and breakfast, I guess.
Like a boarding house type.
Yeah. And with people coming through, and that actually added another layer for Forrest in terms of education, because he got to meet all kinds of interesting, unique, different people who would come through to stay there, and it allowed her mother to be home with her son and work and make the money to give him everything that he needs. So she's a really fantastic mom, and just always there for him all the way up to the end. Yeah.
You pretty much hit the nail on the head. This is one that we agree on. Mm-hmm. She's on my list also, but she's a little bit lower down. I'll cover I'll just add my 2 cents worth at the end when I do hers. But it's a great choice, obviously, since she's on my list also. And everything you said is absolutely perfect. And Sally Field, I honestly, I don't think anybody else could have played that role. Mm-hmm. Even Meryl Streep, who we know is a great actress, I think Sally Field just owned the character, and she has that persona to be Mrs. Gump, and she's absolutely perfect in the role. My number 5 is from another TV show from the 90s, late 90s, I guess, early 2000s, I suppose. Kitty Foreman from That 70s Show, played by what's the actress name? Hold on, Deborah Jo Rupp. Who was fantastic. Now, for those who don't know, that 70s show is a show that is a sitcom, takes place in the 70s, and follows a group of friends who go through life, and it's all 70s in jokes and stuff like that. And the main characters are the Foremans, and they're your typical like 70s parents who grew up in the, who became parents like in the 60s, and their kids are now, getting close. They're in high school or they're older than that. So they've been around since the 60s, but they have that sensibility where the father, Red Foreman, is the stern, wisecracking, always puts his kids down, tough father who does sort of have a heart of gold when he needs to,
Right.
But and then you have his total opposite in Kitty, who is the most upbeat, cheerful, great mom, typical mom you expect, loves her kids, takes care of the family and stuff like that. But Deborah Jo Rupp brings an edge to Kitty, and that is what makes it so great, because you have Red, who's such a strong presence. He's the actor. I forget his name right now, which is a shame because he's such a great actor, and he just has a presence, and he's such a bastard, but he's a lovable bastard. You want to give him a hug, even though he's going to look at you like, why are you giving me a hug? But he also has that little heart of gold and a little gleam in his eye. But we also know that Kitty's the boss. He might have that stern facade, but if Kitty is unhappy with something or says something, and she puts her foot down. Red, who's this big tough guy, sort of goes into a whiny mode. He's like, because he wants to make his family happy. And what's also great about it is that they have two kids. They have a daughter and a son. And the daughter is kind of messed up. She sleeps around. She's got an attitude. She's kind of a bitch. And Kitty doesn't take that. She and her, I was talking about earlier, my mom and my sister were banging heads at this. What Kitty brings to her relationship with her daughter, yes, she loves her daughter, but she wants to slap her daughter so hard. and so she is able to, she needles her enough because the daughter is such a bitch. I'm sorry, she is. She is a horrible person, and Kitty needs to try to bring her down, from being that way, and it's kind of hard. So she's got to become a bitch herself towards her daughter.
Right.
She still loves her, obviously, still loves her and takes care of her and all that stuff. But
she's got to hold her own.
Exactly. And then she loves her son. It's her baby, so her son is everything about. But and unfortunately, the son. Once again, I know it's played by Topher Grace, but I can't remember his character's name. But the dad is the opposite. The dad is banging heads with his son, calling him an idiot, a moron, a dumbass. Actually, is what he calls him, dumbass and stuff like that. And his mom is his staunch defender and usually defends him against her daughter. Like when her daughter's obviously a daddy's girl. Because he's like, oh, daddy, I wish I had a car. Oh, sure, honey, you can have a car, whatever. And then she reverses and goes to her brother and says, aha, I got a car. Like that. And Kitty knows that. And she's like, what? You just step back, lady. He's a good, that's how. So it's funny. They play off each other. So the dad and the sister are, our team, and the mom and the son are a team. And Kitty just brings that really out. But then you have the wild card, which makes her an even better mom. And so you have Hyde. Now Hyde is Kitty's son's. I'm just going to call him Topher because Topher Grace is the actor who plays him. Is Topher's best friend, and Hyde has had such a rough life. His mom has left him, and his dad is like nowhere around, and so Kitty allows him to live in their basement, and he basically becomes her second son. And even Red has kind of more respect for Hyde than he does for his own flesh and blood son.
Right.
But at the same time, Topher Grace and Hyde have that brother relationship. Even though they're best friends, they've got that really brotherly relationship. So so you see that, and so Kitty loves Hyde as if it's another son, even though he has nothing to do with her. It's not a biological member of his family. And one of the greatest episodes is when his mom comes back, which is great. And once again, I can't think of the actress name, but is Katie Sagal. Katie Sagal, who was great as Peg Bundy, was great as Gemma in Sons of Anarchy. Also plays another mom that's intense and is the one who left Hyde behind. And she's such a great actress, and unfortunately, none of her roles are on my list. But they're great. But she's great. When she comes back into his life, Hyde has maybe an inkling that maybe something is going to. He's going to have a normal life again. He doesn't have to, be a bother to the Foremans.
Right.
But then Kitty and Red somewhat also, they see what's going to happen. That their parents, they know that she's just here because they know her character. She knows that they know that she's just in it for money. She's a boozer. She's a druggie, stuff like that. And she's just using her son right now. And Kitty and Red, as I said, somewhat also, they team up to make sure that Hyde's mother understands. You mess with Hyde, you're messing with our son.
Yeah.
You left him. He became our son. And they did this without letting Hyde know because they wanted Hyde to keep up his belief that his mom was coming back to get him and be with him. Like, hell no. We know what you're up to. And we know if you're going to mess with Hyde, you're messing with us.
Mm-hmm.
And that sort of straightens her out. And she ends up explaining the truth to what she was doing there to Hyde. And then she leaves again. And then Hyde comes back to the Foremans. And they're fine. And then the final episode, when they're all together again, she's like, to my second son, basically. And it's and then at the same time, she also plays mom to Topher Grace's friends.
Right.
They all allow them to come to the basement. She dotes on them, helps them with their situations. So she's like the class mom, as it were.
Yeah, she's like a team.
Yeah. So Kitty's my number 5. She's a
great one. Yeah. All right, so my number 4 is an animated character because, as you well know, I'm really a 12-year-old boy on the inside when it comes to my sense of humor. And I didn't go with Marge, but I went with her polar opposite, and that's Lois Griffin from Family Guy. So, I mean, very, very similar to Marge in some ways, stay-at-home mom. She keeps her house, really clean and cooks and loves her family, but she's also sarcastic and she's spicy and she's witty. And, she's a really good mom. She's got these 3 kids and a dog and Peter, who's pretty much like a 4th kid, but at the same time, she loves them and she tolerates, all the stuff that they throw at her. And, she teaches piano on the side. And she's just, she's there for her family. She's bold and happy-go-lucky. And, Lois Griffin, I don't know what to say about her. She's played by Alex Borstein, and she's Lois.
I'm not a fan of Family Guy, but
yeah.
that's just me, though.
Yeah,
But I mean, I've seen stuff about her, and she is, and that's the thing that tends to be, and that goes back to my rant that there's like, fathers always are portrayed as the dumbasses or the idiots, and the moms are the ones that keep them grounded, which, in some cases it's true because the moms are the ones that do keep them grounded. Like,
they save the day, yes.
Yeah, they did, but at the same time, though, they allow them also to have that sarcastic edge and that edge that shows that they're a more well-rounded character than maybe the dads are. But every once in a while, they might pop in an episode where the dads show some growth or different stuff like that. So
it's like the woman behind the man.
Exactly. So I mean, that's that is the one constant probably in most mothers in pop culture is they're the ones that are in control of everything.
Yeah.
I mean, look at the shirt I'm wearing. Dad rules till mom gets home. Okay?
Exactly. Yes. See,
we know.
Griffin would be wearing that shirt.
Exactly. We know our place. We know our place. We know what's happening. I mean, Dawn and I, we're a team, but I also know that I defer more to Dawn.
Right.
Also, mainly because she's the breadwinner and I'm not. She's my sugar mommy. So. I do understand that, and it's great. I mean, if you do look at all the other characters that are moms in cartoons or regular shows like that, they're the ones who are strong. And you know what? That's okay because that's the truth. Moms are tough. And yeah, there are going to be some moms out there, as I said, mentioned from the '70s show. Hyde's mom is one of those that is kind of, not around and is a bad mother, as it were. And there are bad mothers, but the majority of mothers, though, you'll find are good or try to be good and just sometimes just can't for whatever reason. So that's good. That's absolutely great. My number 4 is a cartoon also, and we've discussed this a bunch of times. Well, at least once we discussed it a lot. So I'm just going to touch on it basically. Mrs. Incredible from The Incredibles.
Oh yeah, she almost made my list. Yeah.
So we've talked about The Incredibles. We did a top 10 Pixar show not too long ago, and The Incredibles was on both our lists, I believe. So we were talking about that. But just a real touch basis with what's going on with this top 10 list. She is the super mom, literally.
Yes.
She's got superpowers. She is the one who runs the household mostly, while, before things get good, when Mr. Incredible, who after superheroes have been outlawed, wants that adventure and excitement because he's bored at his regular day job. He goes out with his friends Frozone, and they try to solve crimes and fight crime in secret. She's the one who's in charge of raising 3 kids, including a baby who is, unpredictable. And even make it even worse. Yeah. And to make it even worse, these kids have superpowers. Now you try, Jerry, you have 3 kids. I have 2 kids. I cannot imagine what having 3 kids would be like because I only have 2. But I can imagine that it takes a lot of work. I think if someone
well, you're outnumbered, first of all. Right?
Exactly.
So you each take one, but then there's always one admin out that could be off doing something really, really horrible. Especially if there's silence in the house, something very bad is going on.
Someone actually compared it to, you have to play zone defense.
Yes.
Which is whereas if you have 2 kids, you can do man to man. So the mom can take the son.
My husband says that all the time. That's hilarious.
But now you have to play zone defense. You got to have one take care of 2, and the other one takes care of 1, or one take care of 3 as the other one is doing. It's just a thing. Yeah. But to make it even worse for Miss Incredible, all 3 of her kids have powers. Well, she doesn't know what Jack's powers are yet. We don't find those out till later on in the movie. But we know Dash is fast, and he's that kid where he's full of energy. So add a kid who's full of energy and make him a fast runner. That's the absolute worst thing to do. And then you've got the teenage Violet, who is shy and quiet, and she's invisible. Mm-hmm. She can turn invisible. So not only are you covering 3 kids, you're covering 3 kids that have superpowers, and that's hard. And then meanwhile, your husband is off doing God knows what. He claims, oh, I'm bowling, or we're at the bar, or whatever. But in reality, he's out there fighting crime. And eventually, it starts to show breaks in the relationship because she's having such a rough time with the kids, and he's just venturing out, trying to relive his glory days. And she's come to accept that they're no longer superheroes, but he can't accept it. And so eventually, they get into arguments, and then eventually Mr. Incredible gets a proposal to fight crime again as Mr. Incredible, and he does it in secret because he doesn't want his wife to know, and doesn't want to mess up her life too much because she's happy where they are. They have to keep moving because he always does something wrong. And so once again, she's taking care of the whole family again, as Mr. Incredible, who's trying to relive his own life and to do things again his own way and bring back the glory days. He is not moving on in the future where she has. And then eventually the tide changes. Mr. Incredible gets in trouble. So who comes to rescue? Mrs. Incredible does, with the kids in tow this time. And so eventually, they reunite, and Mr. Incredible has learned a lesson now. And so they come together then as a family, and that is all due to Mrs. Incredible taking care of the family. So that's why she's my number 4.
Yeah, she's a great one too. My number 3, which I'm suspecting might be on your list, but I'm not sure because we're getting down to the wire here, is from the Harry Potter world. And that is the great Molly Weasley. That's right. All the Weasleys. So she's got all these kids. And then she also takes on Harry and Hermione. They sort of become like her adoptive children too, especially Harry. To Harry, she's absolutely the surrogate mom, the mom that he never had growing up. Her job is to worry about them, to care for them, to make sure that everything turns out okay, make sure that they're comfortable and safe. But if you mess with anybody in her family, you threaten them, you do anything, the witch in her, the real bitch witch in her will come out, and you will pay the price. So Molly is definitely on the list.
Yes, you were absolutely. You know me so well. We've been doing this long enough that you know exactly what's going to be on
the list. Short because I figured if it's on his side, you're going to have a whole spiel to say. So not in a bad way, just because you remember all the little details. And
exactly,
stuff.
That's the way I am. The one thing I'll say about it before I get into my discussion, I'll tell you right now, she's my number 2.
Okay.
So when I'm going to tell you my number 3 is, you can put your head together. Like, okay, you can figure out who my number 1 is very soon. You're going to be able to figure out who it is. But my number 2, she's my number 2. And we'll get into a little bit more in that. But the main reason why she's on the list is that you pointed out exactly at the end where you mess with the kids, you bring out the witchy bitch in her when she's taking on Bellatrix in the final battle, and she says, "You stay away from my daughter, you bitch," and ends up killing Bellatrix.
That's right.
I think when I saw that in the movies, everybody in that theater cheered and applauded.
Yeah, when I saw it.
So we'll get to her in a few minutes. So, but you're absolutely, it's a great choice. It's a great choice. My number 3 is, I'm going back to comic books, is not really a real mother, but a surrogate mother, is Aunt May.
Oh, yes.
Peter Parker is Spider-Man. For those who don't know, obviously, if you don't know who Peter Parker is, it's kind of odd, but I think everybody knows who Peter Parker is. But you might not know his history. His parents died in an airplane crash, and his mother's sister, May, became the adoptive parent after his parents died. He went to their care when he was a baby, and Aunt May and Uncle Ben. And so Aunt May, who did not have kids, Aunt May and Uncle Ben did not have kids. Aunt May treats him like her son, which is you're supposed to. Even though he's not physically your son, he's your nephew.
Yeah, he's family.
You treat him like your son. There's a great line, and I'm just taking a tangent. There's a great line from the movie The Freshman, which has Matthew Broderick in it, and his mother got remarried to someone else. His father died, and his mother got remarried to someone else who's kind of out of it. And there's a scene near the end where he's admonishing his stepdad, and he's like, "If I had a son, I would treat him like my son. If I had a stepson, I would treat him as my son." Yeah. So it's not, he's not my nephew. He's my son.
Right. I've got to make difference.
Yeah. I've got to teach him right from wrong. Mm-hmm. I got to protect him. I got to put my life on the line for him if I need to. I've got to make sure that he learns right from wrong. And that's basically, that's the whole essence of Peter Parker Spider-Man. He gets the biggest bit of that from Uncle Ben, and that's the whole great with great power comes great responsibility. That comes from Uncle Ben. But when Uncle Ben gets killed, Aunt May becomes once again a single mom and has to instill the values of that, and she does, and she's stern too. If he gets out of line, she's portrayed as, it's funny how she's gone through a lot of iterations. Also in the early comics, she's portrayed as like this frail older lady, but if you screw up, she'll take that wooden spoon and she'll smack the shit out of you. And she does that to Peter a few times because he says something so stupid or does something so stupid that she beats the hell out of him. And then at the same time though, she adores him. The joke is that she makes him tons of food, and you're getting too skinny. Eat. You gotta eat. You're getting too skinny. You gotta, and protects him as best as she can. And then gradually, as he got older and stuff like that, they did the whole gamut. Well, okay, she's really ancient now. All right, we're gonna kill her. Oh no, wait, we faked her death. She's come back to life now. She's still a frail old lady though. Oh wait, we killed her again. No, she faked her death. So it was just this whole craziness. But then eventually this new writer came on, J. Michael Straczynski, who did Babylon 5. He took over and had a interesting run on Spider-Man. There's some good and some bad, but the one thing that he brought to the table was he made Aunt May not quite as frail and old as she was portrayed earlier, and he reveals Peter Parker's identity to her. She didn't know that he was Spider-Man. In this essence, he decided to see, okay, what would happen if he told her that she found out. And in the end, she absolutely helps him out. And it's so funny. There's this one scene where where she and Peter are flying to like California or something like that, and he has his web slingers on him, he's wearing them just in case a problem happens. He can just get into his costume and he can save the day. And that's stuff that shoots the webs out of there. But they're made of metal. So he goes through the metal detector, and the metal detector, or actually he doesn't know, he's not wearing them. He has them in a bag. And the metal detector goes off because there's something in this bag. And so, of course, when the metal detector goes off, they're going to want to see what it is. So if they open that up and they find these web cartridges, they're going to one and one together. Oh, wait, this guy's Spider-Man, and his identity is going to be revealed. Aunt May knows that this can't happen. So she steps in and says, look, you don't want to look in that bag. I'm an older lady. I need help, like going to the bathroom or something like that. There's this metal thing that I have to wear that helps me go. She comes up with like the absolute grossest thing she could come to cover for her son, and they're like, "Ooh, okay, yeah, we'll it's an old lady. I mean, she's in her late 60s, early 70s. She's got white hair. She's not gonna lie. Okay, I'm all right. I'm not gonna look at that.
I don't want to see that.
And so it's just great, but she is the constant, and he's always does what Peter does is after he loses Uncle Ben, he wants to make sure he doesn't lose Aunt May. So he wants to, everything he does for her. He tries to take pictures to sell the Daily Planet. He gives some money to his aunt. He's always goes over her house for dinner and stuff like that. And she's always concerned about him. But at the same time, though, she kind of gets into that mode where she's like, you know what? You go live your life. I'm going to be just fine. But Peter still, and it's actually kind of reversed. Yes, she dotes on Peter, but Peter is more of the doter on Aunt May. And it sometimes it kind of pisses her off sometimes. Like, look, I'm living my own life now. She eventually opens, like Mrs. Gump does. She opens up her own boarding house and she gets some of her older friends that live in her house like that to make some extra money. It's like, I got all these friends here. I love you and I'll have dinner and breakfast and lunch with you, but stop worrying about me. I'm okay. I'm more worried about you. But, so you got that atmosphere. So Aunt May is just helped, once again, like Martha Kent, instills the right from wrong into a superhero, which someone with great power, if is not shown the right path, could easily turn into the absolute worst bad guy.
Right.
So, and the funny thing is, and here's something funny too, talking about Mrs. Gump, Aunt May was played by Sally Field in the most recent Spider-Man, in the most recent Spider-Man movies, and so that's kind of funny.
Yeah, I totally forgot about that. That's right. The irony.
So my number 3. You're number 2.
My number 2, I feel really bad about now because I was focusing more on like that whole theme of the mom who lets her kids make the mistakes, but then I come to realize that a lot of my mommies end up having this spouse who's like the big kid, like that negative portrayal of dads. And this is yet another one of those, so I feel horrible about that. Sorry. And I didn't even like put 2 and 2 together, but I guess blame Hollywood, don't blame me.
Exactly.
So my number 2 has to be on here because it's from the vacation movies. It's sort of a no-brainer when it comes to me. And it's Ellen Griswold. And, she's the loving mother to Rusty and Audrey, but she has to tolerate Clark and all his antics. And, no matter what, no matter how zany his ideas are, she always supports him. And she never like sort of bad talks him. Yeah, she'll roll her eyes or whatever, but she's always by his side and she always goes along with what he wants to do, specifically the road trip to Wally World. She's the voice of reason, obviously, between the two of them. And it just makes her a wonderful mother. She the bond that she has with her husband, I think the kids can look at that and sort of aspire to like, yeah, our dad's nuts, whatever, but they do love each other. They are close and they are what is the makeup of our family. And so she makes sure that they know that and that they in turn support him as well. So I think that makes her a really strong mother because she isn't married to the perfect man, but somehow she's able to keep life perfect. And the one example that pops in my head is when he's struggling with the lights at Christmas Vacation. And then she has that moment where she's like, she goes over, she flips the switch, the lights come on, everything's awesome, but she never says, she gets it done and she just makes everything right. And I just really like her as a mom because of that.
She made it seem like it was, he did it.
Yeah.
Did it. And didn't say, and that's great. Yeah. And then what she might say in the end is, she might mention is like, don't forget to flip that switch, and right. Not make it seem like that was what was situations like, don't forget to flip that switch. And Clark would be like, okay, yeah, that makes sense, Yeah. And he would in his mind, he might figure that it was, him that solved that problem. That's such a great. I should have put her on my list because I love Ellen Griswold and she's great. And Beverly D'Angelo just is a phenomenal actress. She's one of those hot moms. Also, I'll be the first person to admit it. She's one of those hot moms. And and what's interesting about it is that the actress is one of the only actors who can probably tolerate working with Chevy Chase, because Chevy Chase is such a jerk in real life. When I heard in real life,
I was really surprised when I heard that. But yeah,
they've made 4 movies together, and then they were supposedly going to do a TV show together. I think that fell apart, and I'm not exactly sure why that fell apart. I actually would have watched that because they have great chemistry together. Beverly D'Angelo and Chevy Chase have great chemistry together. And what's great is in all 3, and I don't really think about Vegas Vacation that much because
I don't count that one. Yeah.
The big 3, Regular Vacation, European Vacation, and Christmas Vacation are the 3 I focus on mostly. And in all 3 of those, there's little segments that, a lot of people, and you can see this on Twitter all the time, and you can't really follow what Twitter says. All these married couples are complaining about how their life stinks being married, and and how their sex life is suffering, and all this stuff is like, well, maybe you shouldn't have gotten married, or if your sex life is having a problem, maybe you need to do something to spice it up a little bit, and they are a typical couple that they will have their arguments and she will stand by his, but at the same time they've got that heat towards each other. The main thing I can think of is in European Vacation, where Clark is testing out his video camera and she's in the shower and she decides, let me do a little sexy and so he films it and then puts it down. They end up having sex. It's on camera. It becomes a plot point obviously later on in the movie. But you have that. And then in the original Vacation, where, he's flirting with Chrissy Brinkley's mysterious woman and ends up getting busted in the hotel pool. And they are close to having their marriage dissolve, but then they work out their issues. And, that night they worked them out in other ways also. Because they're even happier the next time. And then in Christmas Vacation, they are so comfortable together. And this is the one thing I'm never going to forget. And it's just something, it's a very subtle thing. But at the end, when the policemen have all come crashing into their houses and, stuff like that, and they're all putting their hands up. And hers is on his crotch. And then she, shakes the hand of the chief of police and then puts it back there. And neither of them acknowledge it because it's a typical thing, I mean, it's you've been married for so long with kids. It's like second nature. It's not like you're going to a stranger and cupping their balls,
Right.
It's a family that's been together for, a husband and wife have been together for a real long time.
Right.
And that's also, she backs them up on all his crazy zany ideas. But when she thinks he's gone too far or things just get to be too intense for them, she'll let him know.
Yeah.
And that eventually helps him work out, figuring out what they're going to do, and they end up, coming. I love European Vacation. A lot of people don't like European Vacation. They think of the 3, and I still agree that of the 3, it's probably the third one. Christmas Vacation is still my favorite.
Yes.
Regular Vacation second, and then European Vacation third. But there are bits in European Vacation that are great, and the one I absolutely love is where they've just got out of Germany with their lives. Rusty was getting ready to lose his virginity, and Clark has been beating up all these German people because they were slapping him around because that's what they do with their dancing. And what's the name of the daughter again? Audrey. Audrey just found out her boyfriend has been cheating on her.
That's right.
And then the mom is, and then the mom, Beverly D'Angelo, is so, with everything that's going on, and because of Clark screwing up again, they're getting kicked out of Germany. The funny thing is that the German girl that Rusty's trying to score with, she hears the bells, like, oh, the bells are ringing. He's like, no, what's that mean? It means someone's gonna be killed. He's like, Dad, and then runs. And sure enough, so they have to escape from that. So the best scene is they're all mad at each other. So they're on the train going from Germany to Italy or wherever they're going, and they say, you know what? Let's just not talk to each other. How about that? So they're sitting there on the train, and then they start doing things to annoy each other. Audrey's tearing up pictures of her boyfriend. Clark is clipping the ashtray thing. Beverly D'Angelo's shaking the newspaper, and then I think Audrey's the one, or Rusty's doing the popping of the bubbles, or Audrey or something like that. They're popping, and clipping windows back and forth, and they just start slapping. It's just everything is building up to that point, and they just have to get it out. And then they get to Italy or whatever, and they luck upon the clothing store, and they're given all this money, and they go and they buy a new wardrobe, and everything gets good again. So, and then just backing him up whenever taking hostages in the original Vacation, taking John Candy hostage so that he rides the rides. Yeah, she has a problem with that, but at the same time, she kind of backs him because look, we came all this way, went through hell, and now it's closed. Are you kidding me? So that's good. That's another good one. I should have probably put her on my list. She'll be number 11. Okay. Yeah, and then she's hot. I'm sorry, Angela's hot. She's a hot mom. She's a hot mom. My number 2 is, we've already discussed her a little bit, Mrs. Weasley from Harry Potter. And my 2 cents just basically is absolutely the main reason why she's on the list and so high up, and why she was so up on yours also. She has to raise 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 boys, 1 girl.
Yeah.
She has the twins, who are practical jokers and probably have caused her more headaches than anybody in the world. Then you have Ron, who's kind of the quiet, shy type of guy. Slacker type, and adores Ginny. And then her older boys, she totally loves her older boys because they're respected, members of, of the community now, and then they know what they're doing. So she's like that. And then her husband, once again, he's not a useless dad, but he's got this obsession with muggles. So he's always trying to figure out how toilets work and toothbrushes, and he's obsessed with muggles, and that's what's causing him not to get promoted in the Ministry of Magic, because he's so obsessed with this muggles and he loves doing his job. But if he would just get over that, he's smart enough that he could probably become a higher up and get paid more money. But she's happy. I mean, they're magicians, so they can add on to their house with magic. So their house is like a giant.
I love that. Yeah.
Guys, it looks like 20 different things amalgamated together. And then so she's had to raise these kids, and she's done the best she could, and she's instilled a lot of good stuff into them. And to be honest, the twins being the way they are, she has that little attitude also. She's got a little bit of a snarkiness to her as well. And that's probably where, they got it from, And so then Harry Potter comes into the picture, and everybody knows who Harry is. And she knows his history because he's historical. Yeah. And now he's best friends with her son, and that's fantastic. And she knew his parents very well. They were friends of theirs too. And because, everyone in the magic community, they know each other. They're all connected in some ways as well. And so she knew Harry's parents. They were friends, probably. They were probably really good friends too. Wouldn't have surprised me. But now Harry is stuck. His parents are dead. He's living with muggles who hate him. And so she opens up her house to him. She's not well off. She's got... right now, because the other boys are off on their own, the two older boys are off on their own, but she still has the twins, she still has Ron, so has Ginny. So she still has 4 kids in the house, and they're still poor, so you still need money to buy things, But she takes Harry in, and adds another mouth that she's gonna have to feed during the summer, but she does it because it's the right thing to do. She knows that his aunt and uncle are anti-magic people, and knows that he would be treated very poorly if he stayed with him during the summer. So give him a little bit of a break, and to learn more about his magical heritage, why don't you come hang out with magic people? And it's funny then, you also kind of feel bad for Ron a little bit in this aspect, is because I know she doesn't do it on purpose, but she seems to show more affection to Harry than to Ron. Now, I think the main reason is because Harry has had nothing.
Right, yeah. No, she's trying to make up for what he's lost, and she figures that Ron is confident enough that, it's okay to give a little more to Harry and a little less to him, but Ron doesn't always feel that way.
And that's the thing. Then you start thinking about that. That's like, wow, she's paying so much attention to Harry that Ron's sort of left out in the dust. And this doesn't happen in the movies, but if you read the books, in one of the later books, whatever, they've saved enough money to get Ron something that he needs, something special, new robes or a new broom or something like that. So they're able to, because they do love him, and they're not just and they're not just gonna have Harry as a favorite. They want to continue that they still love Ron, and they always will love Ron. They build up their money so that he can have some of the good stuff that Harry is able to have as well. And I think it makes it better in the end that Harry ends up becoming a part of their family when he marries Ginny. And I think that works out. And despite the people out there, and I'm going to go in, I'm definitely going to do a Harry Potter show one day. But those people who think Hermione and Harry should be together, you're absolutely insane. I'm looking at you, J.K. Rowling, because she made that mention. She's like, I don't know. She said, I felt like I kind of reached when I put Ron and Hermione together.
No, I like that. I like the way it turned out.
I do too, because the way I look at it, and maybe this will change your mind about it if you look back at the movies or even read the books. Think of Harry and Hermione as brother and sister, okay? Like a Luke and Leia type, because they come from similar backgrounds.
Right.
Because Hermione's parents are Muggles. She doesn't know anything about magic. She when she found out she was a witch, she did her studying because that's what she does. But she had never really been ensconced in the magic world, much like Harry. Because here's the thing. Yes, Harry's mom is part Muggle, but she's magical and his father's magical. So both of Harry's parents are full-blood magics. Well, maybe not full-blood. That's the thing where I get confused, because she is Muggle-born. She's half-blood, I guess. But, whereas I guess Ron, where Molly and Mr. Weasley are full-blooded, there's no Muggleness in them. They're full-blown witches. But you got to look at that Harry and Hermione had the same upbringing. They didn't know about the magic world. They weren't taught. They weren't taught the stories, like when you get to the Deathly Hallows, which is a bedtime story that Ron has heard a million times. So he knows the story over there. And Hermione and Harry are like, huh?
Yeah.
And he's like, are you serious? It's only like the biggest children's story ever, but it's like, well, you can't blame us. We didn't know anything about magic. But and I get that mostly. You might not get it so much in the books, but in the films, you get that. To me, I've always saw Harry and Hermione as a brother and sister type. They love each other incredibly. But they are not. They're not in lust with each other. They love each other because they're concerned about each other, because they both have similar backgrounds, and in the end, that's how I look at them. But I'll get into that later. But yeah, we're talking about Molly. Molly is fantastic, and as I said before, the whole reason why she's this high up. Get away from my daughter, you bitch.
That was a great line.
Kills Bellatrix. And what's great is in the books, you learn Molly's fears. She becomes a full-rounded character. You meet her early on in the first book. You don't really know much about her, but gradually her character builds and builds and builds as you get to the 7 books. She's one of the characters that her character starts becoming more and more important. You start learning more and more about her, like the fears in number 5, where all the fears she has, and the upcoming war and stuff like that. And then to lose one of her sons in the final battle at Hogwarts is devastating. Is absolutely devastating. And you got to think that that's something that they're not going to be able to recover from. But in the end, it's now peace in our times that they at least stood up to evil and they did the right thing.
Right.
That's why she's number 2.
She's a good one.
All right, here's the big one.
So my number 1 is from a sitcom, and I think the whole reason why I chose her is because I grew up with her in my world and in my life. It was Sophia Petrillo, played by Estelle Getty in The Golden Girls. She is your Sicilian immigrant. She's feisty, she cooks, she does it all. She's married to Sal. She keeps Sal in line. She has 2 kids, Dorothy and Phil. And she's pretty much my grandmother. But I think Sophia is like a little nastier. My grandmother is a sweet version of Sophia. So of course when the show came out and the character came out, we all could relate on a very, very personal level. So that's why Sophia will always be near and dear in my heart. She rolled the ruse. Let's see, what else did I write? She ended up living with Dorothy, later in life as a senior citizen after Dorothy got divorced, and ended up moving in with the Golden Girls. And, just the incredible bond to have with your daughter that later on in life you can then share those final years per se together and create all these great memories. Still very close to her son Phil, and it turned out that Phil was different. He actually was a cross-dresser in secret, and we find that out in the episode when he dies and they have to go to his funeral. And she came from a time when that was just, you didn't talk about that or accept that. But you know what? She did accept that. She was very unique for her time, and just her stories. She would always give advice to the other girls, and she was just a really, really great overall mom. So I chose Sophia, where I know some people aren't going to agree with that. But again, it comes from a more personal side,
Well, you know what, though, when I was doing the research, just following up to see what other people were saying, were maybe like top 10 moms in pop culture like that, she actually showed up quite a few times.
Did she?
Actually, yeah. So, she showed up in a list that had Mrs. Brady, Mrs. Cunningham, and all of that as well. Which, just real quick before I get into my number one, because you can already pretty much predict who my number one is. Jerry and I, our lists are just our personal things, and when we wanted to, we're not saying that there's no other great pop culture moms out there. We know all about Mrs. Brady. We know all about Mrs. Cunningham. We know all about Mrs. Adams. We know all about all these other mothers from like the 60s, 70s that everybody is used to. And when you have a discussion about top moms in pop culture, they're probably going to be the ones that are going to be at the top of the list. Now, that's one of the reasons why I think Jerry and I went the way we went, because we know that everybody knows they're going to be on the list. So why don't we take a look at some of the other mothers that might have been overlooked?
Sure.
Because we know, because not to take anything away from them, they're great mothers. All of them in their own right have their own, and they basically have pretty much they're basically the cornerstones that all these mothers that we've been discussing, they strive to be, that type of thing. Even Lucy, has a little bit of that edge as well. So, not because we have an bias to 70s and stuff like that, but let's face it, everybody knows Mrs. Brady, everybody knows Mrs. Cunningham, everybody knows these characters, Mrs. Adams, everybody knows these characters, knows how they are, and like that. We want to shine the light on some of the other moms out there, and I think we did a pretty good job. I think we had a pretty good list, and my number one is Mrs. Gump, obviously, from Forrest Gump. And for all the reasons you mentioned, I mean, there's not really much more I can add to it, because she's the reason why, once again, being the mom gives you that moral compass, like the Aunt May for Peter Parker, the Martha Kent for Superman. Basically, it's the same way. Your mom is the one that gives you your moral compass. Your dad, has a hand in that too, if he's not an annoying boy child. But
that's right. Yeah.
Yes, I'm still bitter about that. And,
that really brought out some new things.
But the moms are the ones that set you on the proper course. They're the ones that teach you, right from wrong. They're the ones that teach you to be kind to other people. As I said, dads do it too. But in a lot of these shows, a lot of these stories, stuff like that, it's the moms who take charge and take control. And basically, Forrest Gump would not be Forrest Gump without his mom, Mrs. Gump. And she's the one that says, even though it sounds corny, stupid is as stupid does. Life
is like a box of chocolates.
Life is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get. All those witticisms that she gives him are true.
Yeah, they're not so far-fetched.
Yeah, and they might sound corny, but think about it.
Yeah.
Stupid is as stupid does. Stupid is a bad word. We don't let the kids say stupid. We treat it as a bad word, like curse words, because you don't want them to call their friends stupid or call things that you like stupid, because it's kind of a mean word to say. And the fact that Forrest is mentally deficient is not his fault. It's a genetic thing, and it doesn't mean he's stupid. Nobody is stupid. They can learn to do better, or they can just not learn. And that could be, if the people who do stupid things, they might not have a good parental, experience or a person in there. I'll give you a good example of recent developments. And I've already touched on this, but I'm just going to touch it real quickly. Baltimore riots happened a couple weeks ago, which is, something that happened in my neck of the woods. So it's something that's going on. But one of the big stories that everybody jumped on was one of the looters who was getting ready to loot Mondawmin Mall was videotaped. His mom was coming out and grabbing him by the ear and screaming at him and cursing at him and forcing him to say, there is no way I'm going to make you do this, and forced him to go back home. And it got on videotape, and she was smacking him, and she was grabbing him by the hair. And then you've got the two sides again. You've got the people saying, well, that's child abuse. That's BS.
No, it's not. She didn't want her son to die.
Yeah, or commit a crime, and get sent to jail and not have the chance to get an education or become a famous sports person or a writer or doctor or lawyer. She wanted him to get every opportunity that he could, and to do something stupid like looting. Hello, that's robbing. You're stealing something. That is a crime. You're going to go to jail.
Yeah, you know what I love too is that she even said on camera when they interviewed her, she's like, "Look, my son's not perfect. He makes mistakes, and this is one of the mistakes he made." And she's like, "I called him on it. Simple as that,
And to be honest, you know what? I think he's not. That's something he's never going to forget, because yes, he got embarrassed. Yes, he got embarrassed.
Too bad.
But yeah, you need that. I mean, you and I,
watching him, throw a brick through a window, that wouldn't be embarrassing. My God, that's more embarrassing.
Absolutely.
Than having you're embarrassed by a mom who cares. Nah, I don't think so.
Jared, you and I, Jared, we're the same age, so we grew up in the same time. So, our parents, it was a different time, 70s, 80s. Parents, they were more disciplined.
Oh, yeah.
I will tell you right now, Beth,
I
got my ass whooped too. And you know what? Look at us now. We're on the world's greatest video show.
That's right.
Neither of us
Thanks,
have
Mom and Dad.
Exactly. Neither of us have criminal records, as far as I know.
Nope.
We're both parents now on our own. Exactly. We're both parents on our own, and we tried it. We try to we're current parents, so we try to discipline our children as best as we can.
Sure.
But you know what? With the way the climate is now, I think I've whooped my kids a few times, but you know what? They deserved it. I mean, I'll be honest with you. They deserved it. I didn't just do it because, I felt like hitting you. I'm not abusive. No. They did something I told them not to do over and over again.
Right.
They did something they caused. Maybe I think one of the reasons why they might have caused pain to their sibling. I think maybe Noah did something to his sister, hurt her. So I smacked him. I didn't smack him because you know what? I'm pissed off and smacked him. No, that's child abuse.
No.
This was discipline because he did something he wasn't supposed to. I told him, don't do this or don't do that. I told him a million times. And so, he had to learn. And has he done it since? Not really, that I know of.
Right.
But there is nothing, they're at that age right now where this morning we were playing, I was kissing him and he was giggling and laughing, and he knows, and Dawn and I are both this way. We want to discipline our kids. We want to teach them the right from wrong. That's what parents do. And I know you do the same with your kids too. Mm-hmm. And so we'll do what we need to necessary to keep our kids from becoming like some of these other kids who bully other kids or commit crimes and do stuff like that. We don't want our kids to do that because we know our kids are intelligent and we want to give them every opportunity to do what they want to do. Even if that means, if Noah down the line wants to be a guy who works in a garage, that's fine.
That's what he wants.
That's what he wants to do. Yeah, you not become the richest person in the world, but you know what? Learning how to fix a car or learning how to fix machines, that takes a lot of work. That takes a lot of smarts. I don't know how to do it.
But it would make them happy. And that's the most important thing that you're doing. Not all of us are able to find that job that makes us happy. That's a very rare thing. And if that's what's going to thrill him in his life, then hey, great, he won. That's how I see it.
And that's absolutely, and that goes back to Mrs. Gump, because she wanted to give every opportunity for Forrest to have a normal life. Yes, he isn't the smartest person in the world. He has mental defect, but you know what? Let's look at his career. Because of Mrs. Gump, he went to regular school, he went to high school, he went to college. He got a college education. He went into the armed forces. Yeah. He fought for his country. He got the Medal of Honor.
That's right. Getting shot in the butt.
Yeah, exactly, for getting shot in the butt. But he got shot in the butt for helping his friends.
Right.
And helping his CO and stuff like that, and helping them live another day. And that's one of the greatest scenes is when Lieutenant Dan is shot for the first time. Yeah. And Lieutenant Dan has this feeling that he should have died in the field because all of his other ancestors did. He needed to die in the field with honor like everyone else's family. But Forrest's like, oh no, my mama told me all life is precious and I'm going to save him. He's my friend. I don't want him to die.
Right.
So he grabbed him, not even thinking that, okay, he might not be able to walk anymore. That didn't even enter into his mind because he saw his friend was hurt and he wanted to save him. He knew it was dangerous. He's not dumb to realize what is going on. No, he knew people are trying to kill me.
Right.
They're trying to kill my friends. I got to get them out of here. So that's what he does. And then in the end, Lieutenant Dan becomes this bitter alcoholic, but it's because of Forrest, he's able to come to his point where he realizes, you know what? It wasn't my destiny to die out in the field. It was my destiny to become friends with Forrest.
Yeah, and find purpose.
Yeah, and to create Bubba Gump Shrimp, and then to invest that money into Apple and to run a successful company and make a lot of money and help people. And it all comes to Forrest. And one of the best scenes is when Lieutenant Dan, after they survive the tornado, the hurricane and all that, and it's a beautiful, clear day, and he's come to his, conclusion with God and everything like that, when he turns to Forrest and says, I never thanked you, and goes swimming. And, and he said, thank you, and he says thank you because he realized that, yes, everyone else in my family, died on the battlefield, but I got something more to go. My God or whoever has a different plan for me. And it was because of Forrest that I'm able to take advantage of that. And I didn't die, and I lived, and I became as big as I did. I became a CEO. I became very rich, and he got married. He gets married to a woman, and he probably had a family too. So he became what he wanted. He was striving to, and became a great thing. And it was all because of Forrest. And how did Forrest get those thoughts? From his mom. And we're gonna end it on that.
That was nice. I do have one honorable mention.
Sure, let's do it.
And I wasn't going to say it because I guess she was a real life character, but growing up, we always watched Little House on the Prairie, like every day religiously. And Caroline Ingalls sort of popped in my head. So I threw her on, but I didn't want to talk too much about her because she was a real life person that her daughter Laura Ingalls Wilder wrote about, and then, then was portrayed in the TV show. But a great pioneer mom, raised her kids, all the struggle, this, that. And again, another one who let her kids make their mistakes and grow and learn from them.
And that's probably the best way to look at what a mom and what a dad does, is to let them do that. I mean, it's hard for me, and it's hard for you, I can imagine, about letting your kids do that. Maybe especially at this age. Maybe it'll be easier when they get older. But there are still parts of me that, sometimes it's like we tell them, stop jumping on the sofa. All right, you're gonna hurt yourself. But then they still do it, and then eventually it's like, you know what? I'm gonna let him hurt himself.
They're not gonna die, but they just have to. You gotta knock it into their brains, literally.
It's a terrible thought, but it's a terrible thought, but yeah.
It's those little things,
So we talked to top 10 moms.
Yes.
Next month is June. Is Father's Day. Granted, our show is not going to be around. It's going to be about a week before Father's Day, but Jerry and I decided we're going to do top 10 pop culture dads.
That's right.
Because even though we went over, most of the dads in the list, it's
going to be really hard.
We've got all these man-childs.
That's right.
There are some dads out there that actually are, are worthy of A-okay. And we're going to do that. So next month will be a top 10 dads in pop culture as sort of a counterpoint to the moms, because dads and moms working together both help raise a child. At the same time, though, because it is Mother's Day, we have to give a shout out to the single moms.
Yes.
Who don't have dads either, or whose kids don't have dads either because they left them, they died. Sure. Or whatever.
Whatever the circumstance.
Exactly. And, whatever the circumstance. But, Mother's Day is not just for, parental units, fathers, mothers, stuff like that. Mother's Day is for all mothers who are single moms.
Puppy parents.
Puppy parents, exactly. Even lesbian parents, if you want to go that far too. They can be considered, moms as well, because they are. They do the job of raising their kids. So shout out to all the moms. Happy Mother's Day to you, Jerry.
Thank you. Happy Mother's Day to Dawn and to your moms and everybody there.
Yeah, I got my mom, my mother-in-law, my stepmom, my sister, my wife.
No, it's all good things. Yeah.
All my cousins. Not all my cousins, but some of my cousins. But
Sure.
it's great, and it's great, and it is fantastic. So, meet us back here next month. We're probably gonna do another Saturday. We'll work out the details sometime, but around second week of June, Jerry and I'll be back with the top 10 dads in pop culture, and we'll be able to find them. Don't worry, we'll be able to find them. I've already got about 2 in my head right now. I'm gonna pick. So only 2. I still gotta find 8 more.
Top 5. I'm kidding.
Well, let's do some research. We might have to.
Oh, that's funny.
So, on that note, have a pleasant Mother's Day weekend. My daughter's getting ready to have a play date, and I gotta get my wife's Mother's Day present. So
Yep, you go.
I gotta go out and get that. And I know, Jerry, you've got stuff going on. So happy Mother's Day to everybody out there. Jerry and I will see you next month. I'll be back next Sunday with my Dylan Knows Out of My Head show, where I just go and I spiel about stuff. I think I'm going to talk about Lost. I've been Tony and I talked about the TV show Lost a little bit on the snooze on Thursday, so I'll probably hit that and maybe some other stuff as well. So stay tuned for that. Have a great weekend. Happy Mother's Day, and see y'all later. Stop.